So for the waist, my measurement is 30 in total divided by 4, that gives me 7.5. So plus 1 inch seam allowance, that will give me 8.5. I'm not going to be adding did I say seam allowance? Plus 1 inch dart allowance, that gives me 8.5. So for the front pattern, I'm not going to be adding seam allowance. I'm going to be adding the seam allowance to the back pattern. So right here at the waist, I'm going to mark 8.5 for the waist. 8.5. So I'm using this as the weight. Okay, so for my hip, I'm just going to go ahead and mark down my measurement for the front. For the front, we have 10.5. Marking 12.5 right here. Thigh measurement, front is 10.5. My knee measurement, front is 7.5. And ankle is, front is 5.5. 5.5. So I pinned the side of the fabric in place because it was moving up and down. I just want everything to be, I want it to stay put. So the pins keeps the fabric in place. As you can see right here. So now I'm gonna connect all the points for the front. I'm gonna connect this to the hip, and then from the hip point, I'm gonna connect this to the waist point. So right here, I'm going to be removing 1 inch. I'm gonna drop the waistline down for the front by 1 inch. I just pinned the waist dart in place, and I'm going to connect it all the way now. I'm just going to gently pin this dot in place, just like that. So that way I can mark put in my waist belt measurement. I'll mark 2 inches all the way across. Again, I'm going to make sure that this is a 1 inch mark. Take that. Oh, I almost forgot. I need to add the pocket. Okay, so I added a 1/2 inch seam allowance to the top of the waist point right here. So that way I have enough fabric to add the waist belt later. And for the bottom, I added 2 inch for the hem allowance. So like I said, I'm going to be adding the seam allowance for the front to the back pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out so that way I can work on the back one. So this is the front of the pants.
Running your way, but you push me away. Your lifeline, losing your mind. I'm here for you, babe. I've loved you the same this whole time. So tell me, what's on your mind? And I'm not here to hear you say you're fine. I can take the pain you hold inside. I wanna know, wanna see it. Can I feel your grip tonight? Can't get this off my mind. Does it only control you? Let me in, I'll help you out. I won't lose you this time.
So I took 1 inch from the front waistline, so I'm going to be adding that 1 inch to the back waistline. So I'm going to be raising the back waistline by 1 inch, which I removed from the front. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the 1 inch right up here. Okay, so I'm going to connect this to this line over here. I'm going to pin the waist dot in place so that way I can trace and mark out the waist belt. Okay, so now I'm gonna connect this point to this point right here using the straight ruler. So this is the 1 inch seam allowance for the front and back. Okay. So now I'm gonna mark the 2 inch for the waist belt, starting from this side. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the seam allowance to the back pattern. So I'm going to be adding 1 inch to this side. That will be for the back and the front seam allowance. And also I'm gonna equal this out so that way I have 1 inch for the back seam allowance and the front seam allowance. And for the bottom right here, also going to be using 2 inches for the hemline. So I'm gonna do that real quick. It's coming out good. So before I cut the back pattern, I'm gonna place the front one on top to make sure that everything is matching perfectly before going ahead to cut it out. So I don't want any mistake. So I'm gonna first of all match up this side. So as you can see, this is the front pattern on top of the back pattern at the inseam point. It's matching perfectly as my notch for the knee, and this is a bit down. Oh, it's just pulling. So if you match it up like this as the tie right there, and the seam right here is matching perfectly, so I'm gonna match up the side seam. Just gonna match it up like that. Okay, the tie is matching perfectly, and here is the knee pad. This is the notch I made for the knee, and all the way down. Perfect. perfect. So now I'm gonna cut out the back pattern. So just gonna roll up the front pattern so I can cut out the back one. So this is the back pattern right here. I raised the hip point by 1/2 inch. And the bottom, added the 2-inch hem allowance and 1 inch on each side for seam allowance for the back and front. So now I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out. So I'm gonna take this to my sewing machine and sew them together. So I'm gonna cut out the belt, the waist belt, once I've sewn the pants together.
You think you're too far, but I'm where you are, you know. I said I won't leave your side. They left you bare, but I'm begging you, staring in my eyes for you. Yeah, I'd give my life.